with the little that you have, nobody should give you the much because there's nothing that you can do with that one. So yes, we cannot all be rich on day one, but all of us must work hard and make sure that we progress with time. So you look at people and you say, oh, that one is whatever, but you don't know how long did it get them to get there? Where did they start? How did they start? How did they work? You cannot just get to a place today. So it doesn't mean that there's not people that got there, but that's not who you look at. And then be faithful with and do not waste the little that you have. I think I've made something on the point, and I'm sure that I will have, that is probably my last slide. So before I go to the closing remarks. So topical issues. This is where I wanted to say I thought there's no Q&A, but apparently there's Q&A, so I will leave those topical issues for you to read. Okay, so do I still have 4?
You must engage us on that.
Must I say something on that? Oh, Lord have mercy. So I really wanted to leave you with those points. So access to land. I will say one point on each one of them. The point sometimes is which land do we want? Which land are we looking for? And when we get land, do we have a plan as to what we do with land? So do we want residential land? Do we want commercial land? When I get land, what do I do with it? And where are my complementary resources? Will I bring more to the country when I get land than the person who is currently owning that land? So access to land is important. We need to have access and so on, but we need to have a strategy as to what do we do with that access to land. So I think it's before we start campaigning and say land, please have your own strategy of saying, I believe if you go to the ministry, and I don't know how the ministry allocates, so maybe the PS can help us later. So, but if you go there, I want land. Okay, you have had, I don't know, when I say hectares, sometimes I don't even know how much the size of what is. But let's say you have had this much room. What did we do with it? Nothing, because I want more. Can I really trust you with big? If you could not, so could we not look at the people that, if Nangula had this much and she has produced this much, maybe if I give her the bigger one, then she can do more. But the person who's got a little and they do nothing with it because they want the bigger one, must I really give them that much if they could not do with what they have? So what is your strategic plan with the land that you want us to give us? So I know that it's like just, okay, because I have got a need. It's good to have a need, but in the end, giving it to one person with a need, will it benefit more people in the end? Will it not be better to give it to somebody who will exploit it in such a manner that it benefits more people? So there's a lot of thoughts there, but let's talk about fishing quotas. So fishing quotas, who has access? And then when you get fishing quotas, what do you do with the fishing quotas? So it's something that we have, and it's a good, and all of us have it. And I think ministry, for example, says, we don't want somebody who goes and gets dividend, but sometimes the structure is just made in such a manner that you will collect a dividend. So which value do we add? And when we evaluate, like I said, I'm not sitting on the evaluation panel, but when we evaluate, do we look at who will in the end use this resource to benefit more people and to benefit the country and to grow the economy, and who will use it for their own? And again, the exploitation, like I said, I think the fishing quota allocation was a great initiative by government. But the way it turned out, I don't think it is benefiting as many people, and it's taking as many people out of poverty as government would have loved to, probably because the implementation thereof went wrong. So how do we implement it right? Is probably something that we need to have a conversation about. Mineral resources, it's good for us to have, but I think the cost of exploration of mineral resources, do we consider that and take it into account? So technological resources, how much of that do we have? Because actually, if you see where the world is headed with all, whether it is access to land, minerals, and so on, we need technological resources. But is that a focus that we have really on saying, are we building technological resources that will enable us to efficiently exploit all the other resources that we have? Government contracting, how accessible is that? To me, I thought that, for example, the public procurement, there is a lot of good intention, and I think it's definitely something that can benefit. The bureaucracy is probably something that needs to be looked at, and I actually think that is one avenue that government can help deal with BEE instead of having another legislation, because government is the buyer of most of the goods and services in Namibia. And if they say they will enforce empowerment through that, I think they will have that replication effect. But the point is, do we all have access to government contractors? Or is it who knows who and who opens which door and so on? But then the other thing is, to know who and to exploit that relationship, maybe it's a skill. So how can we all be educated as to how we exploit that relationships? And then homegrown, how much do we support Namibian products? So let's look at this, a few of these things. Like, let's talk about milk. If I look at many of us sitting in the room and I say, you go to the shop and buy milk, what do you look for? The price? Is that the right thing to do? What is the difference in the price between a Namibian milk and a milk from somewhere else? What is a lot? $5. Eh? $1. What do you do with the $5 that you save? So you go in the shop and you say, I'm not buying Nam milk, I'm buying another milk, and I save $5. What do you do with that $5? To do what? No, you go to the shibin. Is that so? Was that the best use of the $5? You go and buy a beer with it. So can you not, for the sake of Namibian, can you not give up it's half a bottle of beer, to say, I will give up half of a bottle of beer, buy Nam milk, and then Nam milk will give employment to a Namibian that will go and buy in ShopRite, that will go to the family, or to buy in Vurmanbroek, and whatever, and that whole story. Do we educate ourselves like that? Do you know that if I choose to buy Nam milk, I might have given up $5, but I've actually created Namibian employment? Is that the way we look at it? So when we say $5, and many times that $5 means nothing. So I know that it means something to some people, and depending on the category of the level of poverty that we are, I agree that there's many people that will need the milk that comes at less. But there's many people that go in the shop and say, I buy this cheap and this cheap, without consideration at all of how much money you are flying out of the country instead of keeping the $5 floating in the economy. So we look at this one, but it says, in comparison of developed and developing countries, lower inequality is highly correlated with fast growth. I think what I'm looking at here in the end is, we can talk about redistribution, inequality, and whether if we really need to deal with inequalities and so on, we need to talk about growth. How can we utilize our public resources and services to grow the economy? The more we grow the economy, the more chances we have that we will close the inequality gap. Thank you very much.
Your 30 minutes. A round of applause for Ms. Uaandja. I think that the flow of cash was going well until you said ShopRite in the chain, and then there was a bit of a jerk reaction from the audience. No, we love ShopRite. We love ShopRite. We love all businesses in Namibia. Nonetheless, we move on with more here. I think in the interest of time, what we're going to do is we'll, Ms. Uaandja, please come back on stage. I was thinking of bringing in Ms. Lister as well, but I think it's good to just break down the issue so that we can have your Q&A, as well as Mr. Supani. She's still here. Yes, can you please come to the stadium, the podium, so that we can do the quick Q&A. Once again, just a reminder, if you are on social media, please make use of the hashtag. That's inequalitycom2018 or inequality 2018. We would like to track the engagement at the end of the conference. The questions, please, let's reduce them and keep them to one question per person. I'm going to be very, very strict on this. I think it's very inconsiderate when you also become overpassionate and now want to speak for 15, 20 minutes. Then, you know, especially at a conference of inequality, we can't be unequal about this. Right, so do we have the roving mics? Roving mics? Thank you. First question. Positive? We're not together, guys. Positive? Can we have one more time? Positive? There we go. Is it on?
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Reginald Hinda. I just have one question for the PS. I think the Master of Ceremonies has been dodging me the whole morning, but finally I get a chance. My question is just one question. I just want to ask on poverty. How do we compare poverty with the cost of living? Because I think if we can also have policies or programs that can reduce the cost of living, we will also be able to contribute to the alleviation of poverty. I say this to, like, for example, you have a lot of people that come to the city in search of greener pastures, but they come and find that the cost of living in the city is much higher than in a smaller city. So then we have this problem that people say, no, we are in poverty, but actually you have come to a place where the cost of living is much higher than where you were. You have Chinese people, maybe even Zimbabweans, that come from their countries from extreme poverty conditions, and then they come to Namibia to find a better life, and they get themselves out of poverty. So I think, like, how do we compare poverty with the cost of living?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The next question, I think we'll take them in sets of 3.
Good afternoon, everyone. Probably wondering why I'm asking a lot of questions. This is my area of passion, and it's also for my research.
Go ahead, Vasilis.
Yeah. This is and let me ask Ms. Uaandja. You said something about that if we were to give people resources, for example, land, what plan do you have for that land for you to be able to develop in all that? But now let's just trace back a little bit history.